It would not surprise me. It would not surprise me, but what you will remember the incident in which Jesus, after speaking to a group of people a number of times, they got into a boat, and Jesus obviously was tired. He fell asleep. All the disciples were on this boat. A storm came up. And I'm told that storms in very shallow lakes are oftentimes much more dangerous than in big lakes, because there's not enough water to. And the storm apparently was rocking and rolling their boat to the point at which the disciples were absolutely convinced they were going to die. And they turn around and they see Jesus sleeping. and they wake him up and they say, "Don't you care about us? There's a storm, we're about to die." And he, stands up in this rocking and rolling boat, and he raises his arm and he says this to them. And I wanted to share these very brief words that come out of the story that all three of the Gospels share. Matthew shares it, Luke shares it, and now here you'll hear it from Mark. It's a powerful story, and I want to hear what Jesus said. He says to them, but he was in the stern, asleep on the cushion, and they woke him and said to him, "Teacher, don't you care that we are perishing?" He woke up and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, "Peace, be still." Then the wind ceased and there was calm. Calm. I must say these last couple of weeks I've struggled with not wanting to make the sermon personal. And at the same time, I kept coming back to needing to share with you messages I've shared with others in a personal way when someone has been in a particular metaphorical storm of illness or an accident or a loss of someone. The goal was to help the person by being present with them, not giving them advice and counsel, particularly at that point, but to be with them and to share with them that we're mindful of their pain and their storm. And to the extent that they're willing to share that pain and storm, we will share it with them. And it is my prayer that it may be claimed by every one of you at some point that in the midst of your metaphorical storm, or that storm which represented some trauma, some chaos, some pain in your life, that you were moved from that anxiety and fear, that you were encouraged to embrace a sense of calmness and peace, and that you were aided by family members, by friends, and by your faith. Perhaps you can recite some of your own life experiences where indeed that was the case, that alone, though you had strong faith, this was such a major change in your life, that it was so valuable to you that someone came and said, "I'm here for you. Is there anything I can do? I will be here as long as you need me." That's a powerful statement. It's a witness that the person wants to be aware of your pain, your struggle, the storm that's in your life, and the extent to which you're willing to share that journey with them. Very likely, when it's done well, and when it's done gently and kindly, that indeed you find yourself feeling so much more comfortable and so much more at peace. The reality is that all of us, every one of us is capable of doing that. whether we're in our home, helping a child. I recall one time Andy said to me, "Thanks for not telling me I said so." Thanks for not telling me I told you so. And just being there to hear the struggle he was experiencing at that moment was a sign that their dad loved them in the midst of that storm, and that it was not willing to point fingers at him at that point in his life. The experience was less than enough. He didn't need any more. The fact of the matter is, when we think about the people who have responded to others in their storms, we oftentimes hear the term saint in front of their name. Now, we talked last Sunday about saints, and I'd rather think that all of us can be saints, frankly, if we care about others, if we show our affection toward others in a gentle and kind way. There are many people in history who have responded initially, and they were just like us. They were ordinary, normal folks, ordinary folks who struggled with life as it came to them and as they saw others. And I want to share with you some of these people. And I know that you know their names, but you may not know as much about them. Consider, if you will, Francis of Assisi. Francis of Assisi lived with a family that was, they were faithful. They were part of the Christian community, but they were struggling. And he decided that he needed to give his life, not right away, by the way. He didn't do that until he was well into his 30s. He decided to commit his life, not seeking the goal of becoming a saint. That didn't happen until many, many years later. But to help people and to be with them in their storm. And so his pledge was to minister to the poor and to the outcast, including ministry to lepers in a lepers colony. You know, what an act of compassion Francis of Assisi did. And over the course of time, of course, his ministry began to grow and others joined him. And at some point, the church decided this is a man who was obviously incredibly faithful, and we want to canonize him as a saint. Well, he was a saint before he was named a saint, let me tell you, because he cared about those who were struggling and helped them find calm in their storm. Some of you know about Vincent de Paul and Louise de Lamarck. Both of them co-founded the charity of the Daughters of Charity, actually. They lent their resources to a group of women who wanted to commit themselves to charity, and they themselves became involved. They provided care for the sick, for the poor, and for orphaned children. These are people we often ignore: the poor, the sick, the orphaned children. But they said, no, we won't ignore them. We will do something to try to help them, and we'll provide care for them. We'll make sure that they have adequate food. We'll make sure that they have adequate. And by the way, many of them were already ill or struggling from various kinds of diseases. Many of them were aged, who were the poor, and many of them had suffered mightily. They too became Saint Vincent and Saint Louise. We know about Florence Nightingale, or maybe we don't. Florence Nightingale lived in England, Scotland, Ireland area. She served she was a nurse, she became a nurse, and she went to the war zone in Crimea. Now, it's like so many wars repeat themselves. This is the area around Sevastopol in Ukraine, in that area. This is that area that was part of the Roman Empire at one point. And there was a massive growth of opposition to their takeover of countries. And the Crimean War was a 2-year war that was lasted a total of 3 years, from 1853 to 1856. We were in battle against ourselves during the Civil War then, so we were not engaged. But Florence Nightingale decided she would risk her life to care for the wounded. 3 times as many people were wounded and died who were citizens and not soldiers, because war knows no boundaries. They hadn't discovered collateral damage yet as a way of describing the citizens. But she found a way to care for people, and in the process of doing it, as a nurse, she gained great insight into medical care, which had powerful impact on the training of nurses from that point on. What a wonderful woman. I think of Irina Sandler. Irina Sandler was just an ordinary Polish social worker. She had learned how to care for people who had special needs. And as a social worker, she knew what was happening in Poland during and previous to the beginning of the Second World War. She managed on her own, with the aid of those who were willing to assist her and take the risk, and they too should indeed be identified. She risked her life, and they risked their lives to rescue over 2,500 Jewish children. This is what she did. She identified who they were, secured for them false identifications, and then found homes for them that were safe places for them to be. Imagine that. Imagine the storm around parents who knew that when there was such hatred toward the Jews, and it was the final solution to destroy as many Jews as possible, that she was there saving children. Irina Sandler brought calm to their storm. And you know, Sister Teresa, she was born in, she had Indian background, she had background in Yugoslavia, she had background in Ireland. Her family was incredibly mixed. Her father was very active politically, and he was poisoned. Her mother was taken and placed in jail and not allowed to be seen by the family. This is the beginning of Teresa's life. She then decided that she needed to be a caregiver, and so she learned how to be a nurse, and then gained even more knowledge about medical care. She then decided to join a sisterhood, became part of that community of sisters, and then ended up in Calcutta. An appointment had been made for her to go there. She appealed after having been blessed as a nun in her 30s. She appealed to the Pope to be allowed to open up care for other people. People who were part of the storm during the 30s and 40s of independence, and who were part of the lowest caste within India. I want to share her words because they speak powerfully about her desire to still the storm, to be with people who were struggling, and to bring them hope and peace. She said, and these are her words, to care for the hungry, the naked, the homeless, the crippled, the lepers, all those people who feel unwanted, unloved, uncared for throughout society, people that have become a burden to society and are shunned by everyone. This was her goal. You should know that well before her death, there were 4,500 other women who had joined her cause and providing similar care in 122 other countries. Started out as a simple person like us, but caring is not exclusively owned by people who are sainted. Indeed, it's owned by us. We are the caring people who reach out with warmth, with gentleness, kind words, compassion, a welcome. With our resources, we find ways to bring hopefully fresh water for people wherever it is, if it's in Africa or in our own Navajo country, where we bring aid to build a maternity ward in Ghana. You aided that. It is now furnished as a result of the supplies and the equipment that went there and the gifts that all of you contributed to in some very special way. Keep in mind, caring and loving and helping deal with the storms of people is our job. And it's a gracious job, and it's a kind job, and it's a fulfilling job, not only for the other person, but it's fulfilling for us as we see somebody with a sense of humor, with a smile, even in the midst of their storm, because they know that someone knows that they are dealing with a storm. Jesus knew that. This story about Jesus is so powerful because he was able to calm not only the storm of the wind, but the storm that was within the hearts and the minds and the spirits of his disciples. You can do that. You can do that. You can help calm the storm. It comes to your neighbor, to your friends, to your family. Wherever you move in the wintertime, you can do that with someone else who's in your subdivision or your complex or wherever you happen to be. Indeed, responding to somebody in the midst of storm is the most powerful way that you can say to them, I love you. That's what God says to us. I love you. Amen.